It was the heist that shocked America. A robbery so daring, so precise, it became the blueprint for every great crime story that followed. December 1978, the world's busiest airport. A crew of mobsters walks away with over $6 million in cash and jewels. At that time, the single largest robbery in US history. But here's the truth. The money never recovered, not a single dollar. And most of the men who carried it out, they didn't live long enough to spend it. But the question remains, who pulled it off? Who were the men bold enough to shake America's greatest superpower to its core? What was their plan? And how did they do it? This is the story of the Lufthansa heist, America's $6 million airport robbery that changed crime forever. Welcome to Mystery in the Dark. This is where we uncover the deepest secrets, the most shocking crimes, and the stories that still haunt America. Tonight, we take you into the heart of New York City, where the mafia ruled the streets, and where one of the greatest robberies in American history took place. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear will keep you on the edge of your seat. The late 1970s were a turbulent time for New York. The city was alive with music, culture, and ambition. But it was also drowning in crime. Times Square was gritty, the Bronx was burning, and Brooklyn lay under the shadow of the mafia. This wasn't the polished New York we know today. It was a city where power often came at the barrel of a gun, and loyalty could mean life or death. On Wall Street, fortunes were being made. In Manhattan's clubs, disco fever ruled the night. But in the outer boroughs, Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, the real power belonged to the five families. The Gambino, Genovese, Bonanno, Colombo, and Lucchese crime families. They controlled unions, businesses, nightclubs, even airports. And in 1978, no one was bolder than a Lucchese family associate, Jimmy Burke. That was the year a heist was about to unfold. A robbery so daring, so precise, it would shake America to its core. A crime that rewrote the rules of the underworld. So the question is, who masterminded this audacious plan? Who were the men who brought a superpower to its knees? And where did it all happen? To understand the Lufthansa heist, you first need to understand the world of the mafia. At the very top sat the boss. Beneath him, the underboss. Then came the capos, and under them were the soldiers and associates who did all the dirty work. One of the most feared mafia families in New York was the Lucchese family. And one of their capos was Paul Vario, powerful, respected, with influence everywhere, from neighborhood bars to JFK Airport. But for every great heist, power alone wasn't enough. It needed brains, courage, and ruthlessness. And that man was Jimmy Burke, the man who would go on to mastermind one of the most infamous robberies in American history. Jimmy Burke, also known as Jimmy the Gent. He wasn't Italian, which meant he could never be a fully made man in the mafia. But that didn't stop him from becoming one of the most powerful associates of the Lucchese family. Jimmy had a reputation. He planned robberies with precision, and anyone who threatened his profits simply disappeared. To Jimmy, trust was weakness, and money was everything. Then there was Henry Hill, a street hustler who had been running with Jimmy for years. Henry was sharp, well-connected, and always hungry for action. Years later, he would become infamous as the man who exposed the mafia life, through his testimony and through the legendary film Goodfellas. But back in 1978, Henry was just another soldier in Jimmy's crew.
Paul Vario, the capo. Nothing this big could ever happen without his blessing. He was a man of discipline, respect, and power who controlled much of Brooklyn with an iron grip. Then came the insider, Louis Werner, a Lufthansa cargo employee drowning in gambling debts. Desperate, reckless, and dangerous. He knew the schedules, the weak spots, and the perfect time to strike. Without him, there would be no heist. And then came the soldiers Jimmy would recruit. Tommy DeSimone, young, violent, unpredictable, the kind of man you wanted on your side in a robbery, but never in your home. Angelo Sepe, Joe Manry, and several others would join the plan. Each had a role, each had a reason, but in Jimmy's world, loyalty was fragile, and survival was never guaranteed. Every day at JFK Airport, Lufthansa flights arrived from West Germany. These flights carried cash, millions of dollars in American currency. This was money for U.S. servicemen stationed in Europe, as well as other international payments. Along with cash, shipments of jewels and luxury goods passed through the Lufthansa cargo terminal. Security? Practically non-existent. There were guards, but they were poorly trained, underpaid, and some were already on the mafia payroll. Cameras were minimal. Procedures were sloppy. To Jimmy Burke, this wasn't just an opportunity. It was an open vault, waiting to be cracked. And thanks to Louis Werner, Jimmy had inside information. He knew when the shipments would arrive. He knew where the cash would be stored. And he knew that on certain nights, over $6 million could be sitting in that terminal, guarded by only a handful of men. For the mafia, this was more than a robbery. This was history in the making. But here's the risk. A robbery of this size was not just another score. This was a move that could draw national attention. The FBI, the NYPD, even the full weight of the federal government. Jimmy knew one thing. Once the money was taken, the hardest part would not be stealing it. It would be keeping it. Too many men involved meant too many risks. One weak link could bring the whole crew down. And in the mafia world, if you couldn't be trusted, you didn't live long enough to testify. And so, the whispers began. In back rooms, in smoky bars, in late-night phone calls from payphones, Jimmy Burke's plan started to take shape. The Lufthansa heist was about to be born. Every great crime begins with an idea. But to turn an idea into reality, you need men. Men you can trust. Men willing to take the risk. But in Jimmy Burke's world, trust was the most dangerous word of all. It started small, a desperate airport worker, a whispered conversation in a dimly lit corner. Louis Werner, a Lufthansa cargo employee drowning in debt, confided in the wrong man at the wrong time. He had a gambling problem. He owed money to loan sharks, and when you owed money to the mob, you didn't just pay with cash. You paid with your life. Werner was desperate, and desperation makes men reckless. He revealed that huge sums of cash passed through Lufthansa every month, cash flown in from Germany, sitting in the cargo terminal overnight before pickup. Sometimes, millions of dollars were just waiting in the vault, and security? Weak. Too weak. Word of this secret traveled fast. It reached Martin Krugman, a bookmaker and Lucchese family associate.
Krugman, smelling opportunity, passed the information to someone who could make it real, Henry Hill. And Henry told Jimmy Burke. From that moment, the Lufthansa heist was no longer an idea. It was destiny. Jimmy Burke wasn't a man who believed in luck. He believed in planning, in control, and above all, in fear. He knew this robbery could make him a legend, $6 million in one night. But it had to be perfect. So he began building a crew, not just any crew, but men who could keep their mouths shut, follow orders, and do whatever it took to get the job done. The first choice was obvious: Tommy DeSimone. Young, fearless, and violent. Tommy had a reputation: quick-tempered, unpredictable, but effective. If anyone hesitated, Tommy wouldn't. He was the muscle, the enforcer, the man who made sure no one stood in their way. Next was Angelo Seppi, loyal and quiet. Then Joe Manry, a trusted associate. Frankie Carbone, a big man with a calm demeanor, who could intimidate without speaking a word. Each man had a role. Each man had a reason. But they all had one thing in common. They wanted the score of a lifetime. In the mafia world, no heist this big could happen without permission. Jimmy needed the blessing of his capo, Paul Vario. Paulie controlled much of Brooklyn and had connections everywhere, especially inside JFK Airport. When Jimmy pitched the idea, Paulie didn't hesitate. The potential payoff was enormous, and Paul Vario knew one thing: money was power. With Paulie's silent approval, the green light was given. The Lufthansa heist was officially in motion. The key to the Lufthansa heist was knowledge. Jimmy needed to know everything. When did the flights arrive? How long was the money kept in the vault? How many guards were on duty? Where were the blind spots in security? Louis Werner provided the answers. He knew the money usually arrived late at night, around 3 a.m. It was stored in the Lufthansa cargo terminal, in a locked room with only a handful of guards. He knew which employees could be trusted and which would panic under pressure. Jimmy began studying every detail. His men would follow airport trucks, observe shifts, even watch how guards moved at night. This wasn't a random stick-up. This was precision. This was chess. But building a crew wasn't easy. Every extra man added to the risk. Too many people knew, and someone would eventually talk. Jimmy's reputation for paranoia was legendary. He didn't just worry about the cops, he worried about his own men. He knew greed destroyed more crews than bullets, and $6 million was enough greed to tear apart an empire. Still, he needed men for specific roles. One would handle the getaway van. Another would control the guards. Others would move the money. Each job required precision. So, one by one, Jimmy brought them in, with a simple promise: do the job right, keep your mouth shut, and you'll be rich for life. Most of the planning happened in small bars and diners around Queens and Brooklyn. Jimmy and his men would meet late at night, speaking in whispers, careful of who might be listening. They would sketch layouts on napkins, practice scenarios, discuss timing down to the minute. The heist had to be fast, in and out in under an hour, no mistakes, no second chances. Jimmy reminded them constantly: the fewer people who know, the better. Loose lips sink ships, and in the mafia, loose lips didn't just sink ships, they buried bodies. By late 1978, everything was ready. The plan was set, the crew was assembled, and the target was clear. Jimmy chose December 11th, a cold winter night. On that night,
a Lufthansa flight from Frankfurt would arrive carrying millions in cash. The men would move in quietly, subdue the guards, break into the vault, and load the money into waiting vans. If everything went smoothly, it would be over in less than an hour. But Jimmy knew one truth. In a job this big, something always goes wrong. For weeks, the tension grew. Every man in the crew felt the weight of what was coming. This wasn't just another hijacking. This wasn't just another robbery. This was the score that would make them legends. Or kill them all. Jimmy Burke had rolled the dice. The crew was ready. The plan was set. And on December 11th, 1978, at JFK Airport, the Lufthansa heist would finally begin. December 11th, 1978. New York City was wrapped in winter silence. Snow dusted the streets. The night sky was heavy with clouds. At JFK Airport, most people were asleep, unaware that history's most daring robbery was about to unfold. Inside a dimly lit bar in Queens, Jimmy Burke's crew was ready. Each man wore layers of dark clothing, gloves, ski masks. No fingerprints, no mistakes. The plan was simple, but the execution would decide their fate. In less than an hour, they would either walk away legends or never walk away at all. At around 2 a.m., a black van pulled out from a side street in Queens. Inside sat the crew, Tommy DeSimone, Joe Manry, Angelo Sapi, and others, tense and silent. No one spoke. Every man knew his role and every man knew the danger. Jimmy Burke wasn't in the van. He was too smart for that. He stayed behind, coordinating from a distance. If the heist failed, he wanted an alibi. The dirty work would be done by his soldiers. Around 2:45 a.m., the van rolled into a quiet area near the Lufthansa cargo terminal. The building was dark, guarded by only a handful of men. Inside, in a locked room, millions of dollars in American cash, flown in from Frankfurt just hours earlier, sat waiting. The crew moved quickly, masks on, guns ready. The silence of the night was broken only by the crunch of boots on frozen ground. This was it, the moment they had planned for months. The first step? Control the guards. 2 night watchmen were on duty. Before they even realized what was happening, they were surrounded. Guns pressed against their ribs, threats whispered in their ears. Don't make a sound. Do as we say and you live. The guards were tied up, gagged and blindfolded. One by one, they were dragged to a break room and forced to lie on the floor. Fear filled the room, but not a single shot was fired. The crew knew the golden rule. Keep it quiet, keep it clean. With the guards subdued, the crew moved to the cargo vault. This was the heart of the operation, a locked room where the cash was stored. Louis Werner's inside information had been perfect. He had told them which keys would work, when the room would be least protected, and even where the alarms could be avoided. The lock clicked open. Inside, rows of cash-laden crates sat waiting. Bundles upon bundles of US currency, still wrapped in straps from the banks in Germany. In that moment, every man in the crew realized the truth. This wasn't just a robbery. This was a fortune. They moved quickly. Bags were filled with bundles of cash. Jewels were scooped into sacks. Every second mattered. The van outside waited, engine running, exhaust steaming in the cold air. One by one, the crew carried duffel bags stuffed with money, loading them into the back. The weight of the bags was staggering, millions of dollars compressed into small packages. It wasn't just 6 million. Some later said it might have been closer to 10. But no one would ever know for sure.
because the official count was never made public. In under an hour, the cargo room was empty. The Lufthansa terminal had been cleaned out, and no one outside even knew it had happened. But the danger wasn't over. The guards could still raise the alarm if freed too soon. The crew left them tied up, warning them that if they talked, their families would pay the price. Every man knew, if even one mistake was made, if even one clue was left behind, the FBI would swarm this place within hours. As the van pulled away from JFK at 4 a.m., the robbery was done. In less than 60 minutes, Jimmy Burke's crew had pulled off the largest cash robbery in American history. By sunrise, New York looked the same as always. Taxis honked, commuters rushed to work, planes landed at JFK. But inside the airport's cargo terminal, chaos had erupted. The guards were discovered, tied up and shaken. The vault was empty. The cash was gone. In total, $5 million in cash and $875,000 in jewels. A record-shattering heist. The news spread fast. By morning, headlines across New York screamed of the Lufthansa robbery. It was bold, it was clean, and it was unlike anything the city had ever seen. That morning, while investigators scrambled, Jimmy Burke's crew celebrated. Bars in Queens filled with laughter, whispers, and toasts to the biggest score of their lives. For a moment, they felt untouchable. But Jimmy Burke wasn't smiling. To him, the robbery was only half the job. The real challenge was about to begin, keeping the money, keeping his crew silent, and keeping the FBI off his trail. He knew the truth. The heist had been perfect. But people were never perfect. And in Jimmy's world, loose ends didn't live long. The Lufthansa heist had been pulled off flawlessly. Not a single shot fired, not a single alarm triggered. $6 million vanished into the night, but the clock was ticking. The FBI was already moving in. The NYPD was under pressure, and Jimmy Burke's paranoia was about to unleash something far darker than the robbery itself. The Lufthansa heist wasn't just a crime, it was the beginning of a bloodbath. Every great crime leaves behind two trails, one of money and one of blood. The Lufthansa heist was no exception. The robbery was perfect, but what came after was chaos. December 11th, 1978. New York woke up to a crime headline that shook America. Lufthansa, one of the world's biggest airlines, had been hit. More than $5 million in cash and nearly $1 million in jewelry vanished overnight. For the mobsters who pulled it off, the morning after should have been a victory. But instead, it was the beginning of their downfall. The FBI had never seen anything like it. This wasn't a small-time stick-up. This was the largest cash robbery in U.S. history at the time, and it happened inside a secure international airport. Agents rushed to JFK, combing through security footage, interrogating staff and pressuring insiders. But the mob had one advantage: fear. Everyone who might have talked stayed silent. For Jimmy Burke's crew, the instructions were crystal clear. Don't flash the money. Don't make big purchases. Don't talk. But greed is louder than fear. Within weeks, members started making mistakes. One guy bought a luxury car. Another threw an extravagant party. And suddenly, FBI ears perked up. Jimmy Burke, the gentleman, was the mastermind. But now paranoia ate him alive. He knew the FBI was circling. He also knew that the biggest threat wasn't the feds, it was his own crew talking. So Jimmy did what mobsters do best. He tied up loose ends.
One by one, people connected to the heist began disappearing. Parnell Stacks Edwards, the man supposed to get rid of the getaway van. He left it parked on the street. The FBI found it within days. Jimmy ordered him executed. Tommy DeSimone, the violent hothead of the crew, disappeared after tensions rose with other mob families. Others, drivers, insiders, anyone who could be a liability, vanished without a trace. Here's the mystery that keeps America fascinated even today. Of the $6 million stolen, only a fraction was ever recovered. No one knows exactly where the money went. Some say it was laundered through mob casinos in Las Vegas. Others believe it was buried, hidden, locked away in offshore accounts. But one thing is certain: the men who risked everything for that cash never lived long enough to enjoy it. By the early 1980s, the FBI still had no concrete proof against Jimmy Burke. But then came the weakest link: Henry Hill. Busted on drug charges and terrified of being the next body to vanish, Henry flipped. He entered the witness protection program and spilled everything about Jimmy, Paul Vario, and the Lufthansa heist. Even with Henry Hill's testimony, the trial was a disaster for prosecutors. Witnesses were too scared. Evidence was thin. Mafia code, omerta, the code of silence, held strong. Jimmy Burke was eventually jailed for other crimes, but never officially convicted of the Lufthansa robbery. Paul Vario, too, jailed on racketeering, but never for Lufthansa. It was as if the heist never happened. 45 years later, the Lufthansa heist remains shrouded in mystery. The money was never found. The jewelry vanished. Most of the men connected are dead, and the secrets of that night are buried forever in the shadows of New York. It wasn't just a robbery. It was the heist that changed crime forever. The FBI intensified its war on organized crime. Hollywood found endless inspiration, and Americans kept asking one question: where is the Lufthansa money today? The Lufthansa heist wasn't just about stolen millions, it was about greed, fear, loyalty, and betrayal. A reminder that one perfect crime can destroy everyone involved. The money vanished, the men are gone, but the mystery still breathes in the shadows. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, Mystery in the Dark, for more mysterious stories.